Yeah. Okay, guys, we're on.
We're live.
The truth, yeah. Mitten live. We have Hanukkah Messiah Baruch Hashem, and the truth of the matter is that we don't really need to do anything because the Maggid Measure says as long as 10 Yidden are together, they could be mamish doing almost nothing, and no angel could come because they're too afraid to come because the kedusha is so powerful. Kal v'chomer if they hopefully speak some words of Torah and if they sing a little bit.
Even at work.
I don't even know if we have a minyan now too.
Even at work.
We have a minyan. Oh,
yeah, we did it.
Even
at
what?
work.
Even at work, as long as there's no affairs going on and they're there together to be together with Yidden, angels come and the angels can't even come because it's so holy. It's a very holy thing. And befrat on Hanukkah, where it's brought down halacha, you're supposed to get together and not necessarily sing. And you're supposed to get together and say a few words of Torah and sing a little bit. This way, it becomes a sudas mitzvah somewhat. So, one of the first things it says in Al Anisim when we speak about the Yevanim that were trying to destroy us. So it says Lashkichem Torah Secha. The first thing that it says is that they wanted to make us forget Torah. So I mean, to most that wouldn't be a very big deal, you know. Nowadays we forget all our Torah practically the second we learn it. So I don't understand what the big deal is, but apparently that's what they were trying to do. But why were they trying to do that? First of all, why was that the first thing, so to speak, that they were that Chazal stressed that they were trying to do, the Yevanim, and also how did they do it? So we know that there's a story with Reb Nachum Ziemba, famous. He was a big tzaddik, a big goyin, and a big, also a genius. And he was living in the times when they were just coming out with the telephones, before the iPhone 3 even. Even the
What's
3.
That?
Yeah, I don't even remember the 3. I don't even know if I ever saw a 3. But before that, I remember I was in Eretz Yisrael when the first iPhone came out for like a year. And then I came back, and I heard that there was something called an iPhone that came out. So I told someone, yeah, I heard this iPhone. It was a flop, right? Like no one pushed it, no one bought it. And the guy looked at me like I fell off a different planet. I just was straight off the boat because I never saw one in Eretz Yisrael. And I was like, yeah, it must have flopped. He was like, no, just about everyone bought it. And since then it's history. So this is going back before those days. And Rav Menachem had a phenomenal memory. And someone asked him for the phone number, which in those days was 4 digits. Of some year that they had to call, they had a phone in the next house, whatever. So what's the phone number of that guy? So Reb Menachem said, I don't know. We'll look it up in my book. So he looked it up, and the Yid looked at Reb Menachem and he said, Chvod Rav, you remember the entire Shas backwards. Every mafarish word for word. Why couldn't you remember 4 numbers of your friend? Photographic memory. He says, why in the world would I fill my head with those 4 numbers when I can fill it with Torah? Basically, every ounce of space in our mind is, so to speak, at least in a certain sense, finite, that we have space that our mind can be filled with. So the Yevanim basically came along and they didn't say, they did make Xeris against Torah, but one of the main things that they did that worked more powerfully than a Gezerah was that they said, here you go, here, watch a movie, come to a theater, let's speak about philosophy, let's speak about politics, let's get all intellectual about things, and let's fill our mind, so to speak, nowadays with all the garbage that the world has to offer. And then Memela, there won't be room anymore for the Torah. That's the way it works. Everyone knows that a second that you're, and when you, at the Chanukah Licht, some of the tzaddikim would spend 8 hours, some of the tzaddikim would spend 3 hours looking at the Chanukah Licht. And Baruch Hashem, we spend a good 2 hours looking at our phones in front of the Chanukah Licht, At least a good 2 hours, scrolling. But at least we're in front of the Licht. You're in front of the Licht. If you hold your phone up tall enough, peripherally, you'll get the shefa. But
they have now the new app that you can see while you text, that you can see where you're walking, so you don't crash.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. Phenomenal.
No, the camera's on.
The camera's on in the background.
That's amazing. That'll help a lot of people. Yeah. No, man. Plus, we don't even have to stop texting when we're walking. Just keep going.
Yeah, like the waterproof phones. You can text in the shower.
Text in the shower. Yeah, all these things. Baruch Hashem.
Easy to use the text.
The world is getting only better and better. It's true, no? But the nekuda is that they would look at the lights, but if we look at the other lights, these flashing lights of our phones and all this stuff in the world, so it goes in and it takes up space, so to speak. And then when we come to try to understand the Torah and try to remember it, it's very difficult. So that's the level of sur mirah, that you got to stick away the Yevonim are coming to fill our minds with garbage. That would be an eitzah to remember the Torah, an eitzah to go away from this. Lashkichem Torah tzechel, be to stay away from all the garbage that the world has to offer and keep our minds pure. And then there's also the Asay Toif. If we want to be conscious and remember the Torah and be part of it, have it part of our lives, so we have to do something. So Reb Shaul Brach says an amazing thing. He brings down that there's two Lashonis in two different Gemaras. Reb Shaul Brach. He's a Yid. Very holy Yid. But I don't know who he is. He's just brought down. You have to look it up. You have to ask the historians. He sounds like around 80 to 90 years ago, maybe 60 years ago.
I've heard of a legend, Shimon Brach.
Yeah, maybe this was his grandfather. No, I don't know. He sounds like that Tekufa. But he basically what he said is that there's two lashonis in the Gemara. One lashon says that the Yetzer Hara is misgaber kol hayom. He tries to overpower us, and the other lashon is mechadesh kol hayom. The Yetzer Hara every day comes and renews himself. So he says that the two are really the same. That every day the Yetzer Hara is misgaber on us. How? By being mischadesh. That every day he comes to us and he says he wears the same stuff, right? If you look at it, Ein Chadash Tachas Hashem, it's the same stuff that the Yetzer Hara comes 2,000 years ago. He comes again today and every single day. Taivas Noshim, Taivas Mammon, Taivas Kavod, Taivas Achila. The same things, you know. How many times can you eat a burger that's a little different, you know? It's Taivas Achila, it's the same burger. It's a little bit different, but every day he comes and he packages it nicer and he puts on top of the jelly donut a marshmallow with Oreo cookie and then some cream on top. And you're like, wow, I've never had a donut with a marshmallow and an Oreo cookie and cream. So, but what is it? It's the same thing that you ate last year and the year before and the year before. But he comes and he's misgaber on us because he repackages everything and says, no, this is something totally new. This is the iPhone 10. You've never experienced a phone like this, right? Mati?
Because I have a new color.
It's something extraordinary.
Because I have a new color.
It's color, it's face recognition. You never experienced anything like this. But the truth of the matter is, it's the same old thing, the same old garbage, the same thing that he's been trying to do for us for thousands of years, the same stuff. So he says, therefore we know that Zelu Mazah, Kadosh Baruch Hu creates a balanced world, and Midat and Meruba, there's even on a certain level, the balance that we have is more powerful on the side of good. So if so, there's a place in the side of good that's even more strong. And he says, the Torah says, it says in Pirkei Avos, in the Bryce that we say by Pirkei Avos, Hashem chafetz man tzidka yagdil Torah v'yadir. Right? Hashem wanted to give us tons of mitzvahs, so he wanted to bring us closer to Him, make us tzaddikim. So he made a lot of Torah and mitzvahs. So he says that the Torah, many of the Torah includes that it has so much chidush in the Torah. Every single day, a person can be mechadish. If a guy loves halacha, he can be mechadish in halacha. You know, a guy loves chasidus, he can be mechadish in chasidus. Wherever it is, that the chiddush also is more powerful, really, than the Yetzer Hara's chiddush. And if we take the, barasi Torah, barasi Yetzer Hara, barasi Torah Tavlin, that the Torah is the perfect drug, the perfect elixir against the Yetzer Hara. So if we realize that that it has a chiddush in it that's just as powerful as all the advertisements of the Yetzer Hara, then we realize that we have something just as powerful to battle it. The problem is that very often we come to the conclusion that I was in yeshiva already, I was in cheder, I learned a little bit here and there, even went to the mirror, and still the Gemara is okay, I could do it if you really pull my teeth, and Torah is, it's nice, it's interesting sometimes, but very often it's just I have to crack my head and I still don't really understand what in the world it's talking about. So if so what's going on? So for that we have the famous mashal from the Dubna Magid, who Dubna Magid. He could you could update it with other things, but I think the mashal was very good. He says the guy comes to the port, the famous bavuster, how do you say it? Bavuster, mashal, that he says the guy comes to the port. He sees one of these schleppers and he says, listen, I live 5 blocks away. There's a box, it's 10 pounds. I'll pay you $10 to schlep it to my house so I don't have to go. What? Uman, Mr. $1, right? Remember those years, Mr. $1? Mister, you get off the boat, you get off the bus. Mr. $1, Mr. $1. What $1? No, yeah, Mr. Nowadays it's like $20. Nothing less, crazy. Anyways, I remember those days in Uman. Could still say that. All right. The Nakuda is that he says that the guy says, okay, 10 pounds, $10, I'll do it. He comes around 3 hours later. He's dripping sweat from head to toe. He's schlepping this massive box, the size of his whole body. He's like, $10 for this box? It's at least $100. This thing, it's a charge to bring it over here. He goes, my sweet Yid, this thing must weigh 300 pounds. Obviously, that's not what I asked you to schlep. I'm not going to give you the extra money because this is not what I actually told you to do. I told you it was that little box, 10 pounds. So he says, the nimshal is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the Torah is sweet. Its ways are beautiful, its ways are shalom, its ways are masak midavash. So if we're schlepping something
Make your life miserable.
in the
then that's
Torah
not it.
and it's miserable, it's not the Torah's fault.
You do
You're
it
just
wrong.
you're not schlepping Torah. You're schlepping something else. So look back into the box and find where the Torah is, because that's not the Torah. The Torah.
What did he tell him to schlep?
What did he tell him to schlep? I don't know.
He didn't realize halfway past he schlepped the wrong thing.
This guy, no. Well, if you take the nimshal, we could schlep around our entire lives, guys. Schlep around that, let's say, Gemara. Gemara is the worst thing. I can't understand it. I can't chop it. It's terrible. And yet, where something's wrong with the whole Gemara learning, and it's not just, okay, so he should just learn Hasidus or, something like that. Maybe something's wrong with the whole structure of how he's learning the Gemara, where he's learning the Gemara from. I just saw a story from a Yid that was in Nam, back in Nam. And it was in the Mishpacha last week. And he was mamash in Nam. He went through Gehenna and back. And he, what? Vietnam. Vietnam was a war and back in the 60s, back in the Woodstock era. And, but it was a very bad war. And he was in
We
the,
don't have any good songs.
without Nam. Yeah, Nam created America as it is now. It's true. Good old Nam. The Gooks. But, he basically went through Gehenna and back. Then he came back to America. He thought he was going to get celebrated, and everyone spit on him because they were all a bunch of hippies that hated anyone that fought in the war. So he was just the worst places. And he moved to Eretz Yisrael, and he ended up really trying to be a stark, guy, and really working on himself. But he was so still traumatized and messed up from everything that he went through that he could never really get himself straight. And he was trying his whole time. Finally, he came to Reb Zilberman, who created the whole Zilberman Mahalach in the old city there, and he told him that what should I do now in my life? How am I going to get my life together? So he said, now's the time to start learning Torah. He says, I've been trying for 10 years to learn Torah. I can't learn Torah. It doesn't go in. It doesn't work. Reb Zilberman laughed. He said, my sweet Yid, what Torah I mean? Chumash Rashi. You're trying, about Tshuva. Now I know. Now I'm learning Gemara and then Halacha. Stop. Start from Chumash, Rashi, simple. Taich the pasuk, chazer it a few times. What does Rashi say? Taich the pasuk, chazer it a few times. So a lot of times our learning that we're not into it and everything is because the whole basis, the whole basis of it is just flawed. So if that's the case, we're not carrying learning. We're carrying just that smart kid in second grade that caused the Rebbe to say, just if you don't understand, you'll get it tomorrow, and basically Gendik for the next 25 years. But from all that, we have to find that there is a place inside of us that we can learn and we can enjoy it, and it can be as sweet as all the Yetzer Haras and everything, especially when we get to the Chiddush of it. But Lamaisa, a lot of times it's hard to find these things. It's hard to find where that learning is, because often we see that it just doesn't work. So I just heard today a whole Dvar Torah. Rabbi Saperstein, the rabbi from my shul, actually said it over, and it's a beautiful lesson that can help us to understand just in general in life, and particularly in this also. He says in this week's parsha, in Mikeitz, the brothers of Yosef, they come down to Egypt, and they're coming to get some food. Yosef captures them, brings them in, and they're standing in front of him, their own brother, and they go through this whole sipur. I'm not going to get into the sipur, why they did it, what's happening, but they get into this whole sipur. And the question is your brother, okay, you haven't seen him in a couple of years, you can't recognize your brother sitting there, like in front of you. So Rashi says the famous answer.
He had a beard.
He had a beard, right? I've gotten that many times when I meet my uncles that haven't seen me, like my great aunt or something. Oh, wow, I didn't even recognize you have a beard. I can't believe it, right? So a beard does something. Yeah, maybe my great aunt wouldn't recognize me. I think my brother probably would recognize me if I started to talk and have a whole diyun with him, and he's standing in front of me. So what's the shot that the brothers didn't recognize him? That's number one. Number two, even worse than that, is that it says in the Mefarshim that Yosef had the exact same face as Yaakov, his father. Yaakov, his father, obviously had a beard. So now that Yosef grew a beard, he should have looked even more suspicious. He looked exactly like Yaakov now, like his father with a beard. Mamish, exactly. Oh, Yosef, we're talking about you. Sit down. Sit down and take a jelly donut. You look like you're starving. All right. Okay, don't be on camera. Just sit over there. You're offline. If anyone for Shidduchim, contact me in private messaging. We have a lot of eligible bachelors here from a broad spectrum of Judaism, from not religious to Haredi to anti-Haredi to anything in between. Whatever you want. There you go, one of them. We'll do shidduch things later. So Yosef came with a beard and they couldn't recognize him, and it's a little shver, a little problematic. So one of the famous pshatim that I think the Bali Machshava speak about it is that what's pshat they couldn't recognize Yosef is because you milchigs. Your dairy? Oh, good. Give him some milkshake in a big jug, Uman style. So what's the pshat that they couldn't recognize him? So the Bali Machshava speak about this, and they say that the reason why they couldn't recognize him is because they were so caught up in their thinking, and that first of all, Yosef was a slave, and second of all, the rule in Mitzrayim that everyone knows is unbreakable is that if you're a slave, you're not allowed to become the king. So it was such an impossibility in their head, in the confines of their mind, that he would be the king, that even though they were seeing him, and he looked like their brother, he sounded like their brother, it can't be their brother. It was so out of the realm of their thinking, because it's impossible, it's not Shayach, that they couldn't break through that barrier and see that it's their brother in front of them.
Brothers couldn't see a brother.
The brother couldn't see a brother. Yeah. But that's the Nakuda. The Nakuda is that they were trapped inside a box. That their box said that it's impossible for this to be, therefore it can't be. Yosef HaTzadik was the exact opposite. Where do we see that? From a very interesting Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah says like this. In the prison, Yosef is in the bore, is in the pit. So it says that he was in the pit. He was in the prison with the Sarah Mashkin and Sarah Oifim. We know the whole story. Dreams, fine. All the trippy stuff from dreams. All the last two parshas are basically just. You don't know if you're awake, if you're sleeping in these last two parshas. Mom is just dream after dream after dream. All of them seem to be real and on the money. But what's the shot that he was stuck in a prison with the Sarah Mashkim Sarah? We know that the story had to progress like that, but what's the shot that he was in there for so many years with these two guys? So the Meshech Chochmah says because one day he would be the king, and by being around these two guys who were from absolute royalty, they were the leaders of whole, mechlakot, the ministers of the king, he would learn how you act, how a minister, how someone of royalty speaks, how he acts, how he goes about. This way, when he would come out, it wouldn't be shocking. He would actually know how to do it, right? In the story, if anyone knows the story of the Maisa, the Chacham and the Tam, the simpleton and the sophisticate in the Reb Nachman. So at the end of the story, the simpleton becomes the prime minister. But before he becomes prime minister, he has to actually learn how you speak, how you deal with things, and he learns it very quickly. But we see that Yosef learned that from here. The question is, why in the world would Yosef even think to learn from them? Here he is, sold, beaten, totally isolated and forsaken from every single person in the world. He has no one. He's the worst place of the world. There's no way he can ever get out of this prison, right? From all the allegations against him. He's finished. Why would he even look at these guys and say, wow, they act like royalty. Let me start imitating. Let me start learning from them. Why would he even look? So on that, the Meshech Chochmah says, because again, he wasn't in a box. He knew that right now the situation looked dire. It looked like impossible, that his dreams could come true, but it was going to come true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is big. Hashem HaGadol, Hu Gadol, is big. And he realized that even though there's Teva, Hashem is controlling the whole Teva, and he was able to basically see that Hashem could and will change everything. And therefore he learned from them, and he basically realized how to act based on their actions there in the prison itself. The same thing Rabbi Saperstein wanted to say is from the dreidel. Dreidel has a little square on the top. It's a box, and then you take that little box and you just go spin, right? And you take the whole thing that everything has to be in a box, everything has to be teva, everything has to be like this, and you just spin it and you say nothing is right, nothing is set, everything is spinning, everything is open for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring us. So in general in life, and particularly in what we were speaking about in the learning, We want to remember the Torah. We want to have the chiyas in the Torah. There's schachis, there's gabras in Torah, the mesikus. So we got to find our Torah, the Torah that speaks to us. And if we want to do that, then we got to sometimes think out of the box and say, yeah, I've been doing it like this, but like that yid. Sometimes you got to go back to the basics. Sometimes you got to go learn a totally different inyan, a totally different sefer, a totally different thing. Just keep the search going, and keep looking at the lights of Hanukkah. And in Yirtzeh Hashem should help us that b'schus Hanukkah, b'schus these the lights, the hidden lights that are really just the lights within ourselves. We should be zeicha that when we look at the flames. My kid was asking me last night. He said his Rebbe asked him, so he has to have an answer. So I'll, probably the other fathers probably know like the Rush's answer and the Ron's answer, but I don't know those. So I was just sitting there and trying to sing like an Ellie Beer song or something, and I was like, oh, yeah. And so I said, why is it that Hanukkah doesn't have a Masechta? You got Shavuos, you got Pesachim, you got Sukkah, you got Rosh Hashanah, even Yom Kippur has, like everyone's got their Masechta. Hanukkah, 3 blot and Shabbos, you know. Why didn't you get a Masechta, you know?
Same reason why you don't have Masechtas Pira.
Masechtas Pira, Megillah. We have Megillah. We have all the Masechtas. So what's Pshat? Why is it that we don't have the Masechta? So I was thinking that's the Nakuda. The Nakuda is when we look at the Chanukah Lech, so obviously it's all the lights are hidden, there's so much depth in the light. But in the end of the day, we're just looking at a little flame, a little fire, a little candlelight. And in the end, when we look at our own soul, sometimes there's so much depth, but we don't know exactly what's going on. We don't understand everything. It's not clear. But we look at it, we believe in it, and then when we go through the whole process afterwards to try to unlock it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should take us that we should see that we have that soul, we have that spark, we have that fire, and Hashem should help us and lead us and guide us to the Torah and to all the good stuff that Hanukkah has to offer. Shkoyach. Ken Yiratzon, Chaim, guys, please, donuts, Tzuchim, Garinim, po, everything.
Therefore, no Masechta because.
Therefore, no Masechta because it's inexplainable.
It's inexplainable.
It's not. You're gonna have a whole Masechta about it.
It's inexplainable. It's within you to be brought out forever.
It's just a flame. It's just a flame. We gotta figure it out. I guess on our own and all that. Wow.
Do you want to open
Saying why there's no Masechtas Chanukah.
Yeah.
He was saying because of the Rabbanon, they weren't master to have Chashvan to Malchus also.
Right.
So they were, that's only for Yehuda. Since they took Malchus, the Rabbanon, so Yehuda and also didn't want to establish the just spread it throughout.
Why? Because they took too much on themselves. Eh?
I don't know, like what
For themselves.
Yeah. He just didn't like that.
Every
Now back.
They ain't gonna get it.